Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Hello, hello.
Morning.
Morning.
Hey, so many fun faces, familiar faces and new ones. How's everybody doing on this Tuesday? Jessica, you doing well? Wayne, how is it? Beautiful cabin you got there.
Yeah, wonderful friends rented it to us for the winter. Just
Fantastic.
Very nice.
That's pleasant. Awesome. Cindy Lou's joining us. Amazing. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Thank God it's a brilliant sunny day. Yesterday was a little rainy. I was a little down, but today the sun is shining again. So we're thankful for that, even as winter comes. Cool. More people joining all the time. Look at it go. Awesome. Yeah, amazing. Could folks who have joined via your telephone just come online and just share your name really quick so we know who you are? Or if it's possible to put it in the chat, do it that way. I don't know if that's possible to do from your phone, but I see a number ending in 028. Maybe you could just say what your name is there.
Sure, my name's Brian Whitley.
Welcome, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. I'm trying.
oh, go ahead.
I'm trying to. Yep.
You're trying to what? Sorry.
I was trying to launch the meeting. It's just not. It's not working for some reason. The Zoom meeting. So that's why I dialed in by phone.
Okay. Well,
There
no
was a
worries
big
at all.
update this week.
Say again, Star.
There was a big update this week, and it's changed the look of Zoom.
Gotcha. Yeah, some things might be confusing there. Well, no worries if you have to join us by phone today. We're not going to be sharing anything, so you should be able to get it all just via audio. If you do get that working, we'd love to see your face. So come join. But again, no worries. Okay, awesome. So thanks, Brian. And could the number that ends in 443? Could you just share with us your name really quick?
Yeah, it's Chris Leighton.
Chris, awesome. Welcome. Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, I think we can just get rolling here. You know, I don't want to hold you guys too long today. As I said, this will be just a short meeting. So just hopefully within 30 minutes or so. Of course, if you've got questions, we're here to stay and happy to, hang around and answer those with you. But I just want to make sure you guys know that's what the commitment is for today, because I know you guys have a lot going on. But super quick, I'm going to run through just what we're going to do today. We're just going to go through some quick introductions, meet everyone, hear why you're here with us today and where you're from. We're going to talk a little bit more about what county connectors are. I know some of you, this is old news, but for some of you, you're brand new with us, and we just want to make sure you have all the information. We're going to talk about some of the things that we're excited for a bit down the line in the future, some of the projects that we're going to be working on. And then we're also going to talk about just a couple of things you can do this week that are, some specific things you can do that's super easy, hopefully, but just will get you underway and up to speed. So with that, without further ado, and we'll also leave time for questions as well. If anyone's got any thoughts or questions you want to share, we're happy to, answer anything that might be on your mind. So just be sure to ask us. So, without further ado, I'm just going to go around and ask that everybody share, your name, where you're coming from, and maybe, the biggest challenge facing your town or community, or, the biggest challenge you think that's facing Maine with regards to broadband. So any challenges you see in our future for bringing broadband to those dark areas in Maine that need a little bit of a boost. So I'll just start with, who's first on my screen. Jessica, I don't know if it was because you showed up first, but you're right there at the top. So go ahead and start us off.
Okay, I'm Jessica Simpson. I live in Cape Elizabeth, which is Cumberland County. And Cape is pretty fortunate in being well-connected, but I know that there are people who have issues, and affordability is an issue. You know, not everyone in this town is rich, as other people think. But, you know, my main concern is more for the whole state of Maine. I just feel, you know, being 44th in the nation is disgraceful. And I came from New Jersey, and it was decades, 3 decades ago, we wired that high school in our town. And, you know, you move to Maine and there are people still driving to the library to get a hot spot. And it just breaks my heart that people can't make a living. They can't do, you know, it's essential. And so my commitment is philosophical, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we're so happy to have you. And I'm so happy you touched on that affordability piece, because I think it's one that goes under the radar a little bit and is sometimes hard to, you know, get the attention that it deserves. So we'll definitely be focusing in on that and making sure it's sort of top of the agenda there. Wayne, you're next on my screen. Why don't you tell us a bit about why you're here and where you're from?
Thank you, Sam. Originally from the island, Mount Isaac Island, but we just bought a piece of land up in Lincoln, and we'll be moving up there, building up there, moving up there. And we don't have any broadband there. They do have a wonderful satellite system, apparently. But again, I have only heard patchy things about satellite, and would really love to see broadband coming to that region up there. So that's the main reason that I'm here, is to listen on and see if what I can do to help.
Absolutely. Those are great thoughts. And definitely, you know, it's important to be cognizant of the new technologies that are coming out, but also to make sure we're giving them the sort of due skepticism they deserve, and really just making sure they're going to do the job that needs to be done before we just go wholesale into them. So I love that. Linda, why don't you take us away? You're next on my screen. Linda's already been doing incredible work for us, so I'm sure she'll have a couple of in-depth thoughts to share.
Mainly, I'm Linda Dougherty. I'm up in Orono, which is Penobscot County. I am only 2 miles from the University of Maine, which has everything. And I find the town really doesn't have much at all. They're working on it, but there's a total lack of communication. Nobody knows what's going on. I'm finding it very, very confusing, but that's my goal, is to get the word out somehow, finding whatever we do or don't have.
Fantastic. Yes, the communication piece is so critical, really. And that is something that County Connectors directly can bring to the table, right? We are providing that cross-regional, you know, communication and collaboration where it has been lacking in the past. So that's great to hear. Star, you're up next. I love that we're out in the woods with you there. Is that a little coyote in the background I'm seeing?
No, that's a piebald deer.
Oh,
It was yesterday morning at 9 a.m. I went out to get my mail, and what I thought was, because I didn't have my glasses on, what I thought was a birch branch that had fallen down, moved. And it was a piebald and her yearling.
Oh,
amazing. What a picture. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us a bit about, you know, some of the challenges that you think are facing Maine or your direct community?
I'm in Portland, Maine, so we don't have a whole lot of issues here outside of affordability. But one of the things that really hit home for me was when we had to shut down. I'm a member at OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and I also represent Portland for the Maine Senior College Network, and worked on getting all the seniors connected. And it was a struggle, because I then realized many areas have bare bones for internet. And when you are in the age group that is at most risk and not going out, this was key. And I think we need to get it all over the state.
Absolutely. That community mindset is so important. Seriously, it's why we're so excited to have leaders like you guys on board. You guys think about more than just yourselves, but also everyone in your towns and states. So that's fantastic. Doug, you're next on my screen. If you want to tell us a bit about, you know, the challenges facing you and your community.
yeah, I'm Doug Moore, and I'm from Portland, Maine. And
I think the challenge is, I think we've got, as has already been said, we've got a fair amount of availability, but we have major problems, probably like everywhere, in terms of affordability and accessibility. And I think we've basically have created a whole new second class of citizen, people who really have no way to communicate with other people in this new, age. So I'm concerned about that, and I'd like to see what I can do to help alleviate that.
Love it. That's fantastic. Yeah, we got to make sure people are connected, and especially during this time when it can be very isolating, we got to make sure people have the ability to talk to their loved ones and best friends. Michael or Mike, I don't know how you prefer, but you're next on my screen, so why don't you take us away?
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Michaud. I live in Cumberland, right on the North Yarmouth line. My experience, what I'm interested in is I have a range of experience with broadband when it comes to supportability, but I worked in companies that had remote workers and they had challenges with connectivity into data centers to do their work. And most recently with COVID and having companies go remote, supporting them. And I have a range of high schoolers that live in this house that need connectivity. And then I have my parents who are in their 80s and live in South Portland that need connectivity. And so, cost is an issue. Availability is an issue. As someone mentioned earlier about moving and what's going to be available there. Is it going to be satellite or perhaps 5G? What are the technologies that we can utilize to enable every age group to have access? Because I agree, in today's day and age, this is unacceptable.
Spot on there. We're so happy to have your expertise on the team. It's fantastic. Clearly you have some familiarity there. That's great. And you really seem to be in touch with the full spectrum of problems there that we're facing, and hopefully can provide some awesome insight there. So thank you so much for sharing. Pam, you're next on my screen. I'm glad we got the Zoom issues sorted and you're with us. We're so happy to have you.
I am Pam Partridge from North Anson, Maine. I'm a retired educator, and I laughed when I read Jessica's post on the forum because in 1992, my husband and I wired my school, my K-8 building, as volunteers, and my nephew led a group of volunteers after doing a little training with us to wire the high school, the Carebeck High School, at the same time. And yet still, even today, there are households a few doors down from the school that are not connected. When I spoke to my town manager about 9 months ago about where are we with plans for broadband, she said she hadn't seen anything come across her desk yet. So I want to make sure eyes are open and that we're moving forward to make this available to all of our residents in our little rural town in central Maine.
I love that. Yeah, we got to get it on her desk, right? That's our job, is to get this conversation on the table and into the hands of every town manager across the state. And you're exact spot on. There's donuts where you wouldn't expect there to be, right? Even where there seems like there should be service available, you would be amazed at the places that are just, as Linda said, just 2 doors down. You just can't get it. So it's really a pressing problem everywhere. Lyndall, I'm seeing you next, and I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and some of the challenges you see facing Maine.
Hi, I'm actually newly to Maine and Wells now, which is in York County, recently from New York. So I just moved up there actually in November. And so I know that, in terms of York County, I think that the seacoast towns are probably better equipped, but maybe a little bit more inland, they're not. I really find my participation in this activity learning experience because I am new to the state, and also, I can introduce myself to the people in these different places. And my interest is seeing the potential for broadband to bring economic growth and jobs to Maine, but also civic engagement.
Absolutely, that, it is part of our democracy these days, whether it's town meetings being hosted on Zoom and more people than ever being able to participate, but still some people being left out of that conversation. It's a really important issue. So thank you so much. We're so happy to have you, and thanks for sharing. Yeah, Jessica, just so you see in the chat, she's got a message for you, Lyndall. Brian, why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning. I'm from Franklin County, and I live in a little town called Chesterville, which is right next to Farmington, so not too far from University of Farmington. And I'm in the recruiting business, so I work from home. And since this pandemic, it's been very clear that the internet we have is not good. I think it's DSL, and so I have a son who's still at home as well. So the educational inequities, the work opportunities that someone just mentioned, it's very, very important to have high speed for everybody. And the one thing that I worry about is the last mile. Down on a camp road in my dream home, but I'm afraid we won't be able to get the high speed down some of these last roads where a lot of rural people do live. So it's a little bit about me.
Totally. Well, we're so happy to have you from Chesterville, and you're absolutely right about that. That last mile has been a struggle for the private companies to find, make an adequate business case for expanding into those locations. But that doesn't change the fact that people live there and need access. So we're trying to solve that problem. Sarah, you're next on my screen. Would you want to share a bit with us about where you're from and why you're here?
So I live in a town called Searsmont in Waldo County, and we've been working very hard for 8 months now as a 5-town consortium. So we have Searsmont, Palermo, Liberty, Montville, and we're trying and Freedom. We're trying very hard to be organized, and we've applied for phase 1 and phase 2 grants and so forth. The difficulty is we're stuck between either choosing a provider, which would be consolidated, which provided very poor service. So choosing one ISP provider, trying to form our own municipal utility, or doing some combination of the two, or working with a local satellite provider. And we're fortunate that we have a number of people with technological expertise, but we're concerned there won't be enough money to go around. We're concerned about the last mile. And in the meantime, people, according to our surveys, are still paying way too much. And 90% of our households are underserved, as measured by, under 25, even download and upload. And in my role, I do some contracting with the state. I'm a retired school principal and educator. And I can't even do some jobs because I keep getting cut out. Frozen, and you can't fill out the state reports, that kind of thing. So it's a significant problem, particularly with teletherapy for kids who are doing speech, with old folks who are trying to get medical care and communicate. So it can be, affect one's health as well as one's education and work. So.
Absolutely. Those are all, fantastic points. We all know the struggle, even when there's a little bit of delay or lag for a regular conversation. A speech therapy course needs to be sort of instantaneous communication if it's going to be successful. And those are, and also towns and communities like yours who have shown investment are the places that should be getting, the funding and the grants that they deserve. And so, part of our initiative will be making sure you guys have the ability to make those successful applications. So thank you so much for sharing that. And next on my screen is Cindy Liu. Could you share a little bit with us?
Hi, I'm housing. I am in 4 counties: Somerset, Kennebec, Franklin, and Androscoggin. I'm a resource link for residents. I have about 125, 130 residents. So I help find it. So I range anywhere from Rangeley to Phillips to Waterville to Auburn to Fairfield. And of course, the rural, as everybody has already said, the rural areas are just a nightmare. The housing, is not always adequate for the broadband in those locations. Residents, again, it's the affordability, the accessibility, and the education that the residents themselves need. The devices, the cell phones are awesome, but they don't work. Lack of, no iPads, no computers, or whatever you may have. So that's another an issue. Of course, they've missed out on a lot of their resources as resident service coordinator, trying to provide services, and we can do a lot now that we have Zoom and we have everything online, and there's so many things that they could access and use, but if you can't get to it and have it, you can't connect, it's very tough. And so they lose out, and it's all over the place. So that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that we can get more of it in the areas. It is a way of living. We've been saying that it's not going away. It's here to stay. Technology is ever evolving. So residents are willing, they just don't, they just need to start. It's like, broadband 101, technology 101. So some of my 80 and 90-year-olds are a little skeptical, but you've got 60, 70, they're coming up through. So, but yeah, so that's what I do.
No, it's well said. Sometimes.
Can you tell us what you represent? We didn't hear it in the beginning.
I'm sorry. It's a management company out of Augusta, a property management company. So I'm in housing with congregate housing. So it's multifamilies. So they range anywhere from, you've got elderly, disabled, family units. So yeah, it's all different.
Everything. Star, thanks so much. Yeah, your audio dropped out a tiny bit at the beginning there, and we missed some of those good details, but thanks for sharing. That's all seriously really important, and I'm glad you brought up, the education piece. Sometimes people just need a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a helping hand to, get online, and we're more than happy to help if we can with that. All right, and so Chris, I think you are the last person, but if I've missed anyone, feel free to jump in after Chris. Chris, why don't you share a little bit?
So I live in New Harbor, close to the tip of the Pemaquid Peninsula, and our internet service is pretty atrocious. We are bound to spectrum in ways that I think compromise our integrity. And I share many of the concerns that have already been articulated, but certainly primary among them would be the concern that the gap between the haves and the have-nots in this country continues to expand, and I think that chasm between those who have wealth and those who don't really imperils the future of our democracy.
Yeah, it's well said. At the MBC summit, we heard a bit. There was a summit this month for any of you that weren't able to attend, but it was just a little bit earlier. Actually, I guess it was the end of November. Apologies. But they spoke about. Oh yes, thank you, Japhet. It's the Maine Broadband Coalition. Whenever I say MBC, that's what I'm referring to. But basically, they talked a bit about the digital equity challenge and how much broadband and internet plays into that, and also can reinforce it. Unfortunately, this sort of divides that we see and socioeconomic issues that are sort of across the spectrum there. So, all great points. Wow, guys, we really did cover the gamut there, and excellent points all around. I'm so happy to hear so many motivated people looking to make a difference. And we spent a little bit of time, but I think it was well worth it. It's so important to hear from each other and learn from everyone. Was there anyone I missed, just quickly before I move on?
Well, do you want to just do myself and Clara real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Japhet.
Clara, why don't you go ahead first and I'll follow up.
Sure. Hi, I'm Clara McCool. I work with the Maine Broadband Coalition. I was an AmeriCorps fellow this past year. I worked with a couple towns in the Lakes region, Harrison and Naples. And now I'm working with full-time for the Greater Portland Council of Governments, GPCOG, and we're working on a Lakes region initiative to get better broadband. And then I also split my time working with the Maine Broadband Coalition. And yeah, as Japhet said, all the recordings for the summit are available on our website if you guys want to watch. And I guess really quick, something that we've been dealing with in the Lakes region is there is, similar to what Jessica was saying about Cape Elizabeth, there is coverage, but there are dark holes where people don't have service, and even those who do have service struggle with affordability and reliability. So that's something we're trying to tackle. I'll pass it to Japhet.
Thanks, Clara. Appreciate that. And in case folks don't realize, but the Maine Broadband Coalition has been phenomenal through all of this. And I will just give a quick heads up to say that the organization is going through some changes in the sense that it's becoming a legal entity that will be hiring an executive director. And so Clara has been a key point person on making sure that transition happens smoothly. So we're juggling a lot of change in this space around broadband, not just locally, but sort of the infrastructure and the systems that we have in place to support that are also going through changes. You'll hear a little bit about the new Maine Connectivity Authority, which was passed recently in the last legislative session to help really sustain and, I would say, modernize the system that we have to support local broadband. So there's a lot of change happening, which means that there's a lot of stuff, I like to say we're building the airplane as we fly it. So that is just to give you a little heads up that there might be some patience required through a lot of this process, even though things appear to be moving rapidly. So my name is Japhet. I am the Outreach and Advocacy Director with AARP Maine. Part of the reason AARP is at this table, pushing this issue, is that we see it as an equity issue. This is something that I think Chris was speaking to about really making sure that people have access to a resource like the internet, no matter what your income level, no matter where you live. Now, I will say this, and this is, I think, maybe back to Wayne's point, is that there's going to be a solution that fits every community that's different. There is not going to be a silver bullet for everybody. Some of the things that work in the most rural parts of Maine are not going to be chased down in parts outside Portland. So many of the things that we're asking you all to be doing to help us figure this out is first figuring out what is best for that community, right? So what's best for your community? It may not be a one size fits all solution. And so the exciting part of this is that the things that we're building here with you are going to continue on, we hope, for more than just the next few months. This is building the foundation of a grassroots local first development for broadband expansion in Maine. And that means that you're going to be engaging folks and talking to folks at a local level, figuring out what solutions work for whatever community you are in, or for whatever community you may advocate for. In this case of Cindy Lou, who obviously has a very large Maine footprint. Congratulations, Cindy Lou. I think your coverage area is larger than mine, which is pretty impressive. So we're excited to be here. I want to say Sam is going to be leading the charge on this. Sam and Clara with the Maine Broadband Coalition, Sam sort of with AARP. And then I'm also going to be trying to help out as best I can and juggling things as the next few months sort of unfold. But I will say this is going to be on the shoulders of folks like you and figuring out how best to find solutions at the local level. And part of the reason we had a first call like this is just to introduce folks. We want people to feel like this is a resource for whatever challenges or feedback they may be hearing from local town officials or what have you. And then lastly, I'll just say part of the reason why we're focusing locally and why this is grassroots is the majority of the money that's coming from the federal government is going directly to the county level and the community, city and town level. So suddenly all of these local leaders have a ton of cash at their disposal to do basically whatever they want with. There's not a lot of requirements. There are some for sure that focus the money to broadband development. But one of the reasons we jump-started this whole program with Sam was we began hearing, and Clara can confirm this, is that we began hearing rumors from town officials who were saying, we don't feel we need broadband. We feel like it's roads and bridges. That's what we're going to use the money for. And that raises some eyebrows, because as much as we want to support roads and bridges, we also want to acknowledge that this is the moment. We're not going to have this sort of funding and support to do this work every year. This is a huge opportunity. So the last thing we want to do is for certain communities to be left behind because the people who were running that community at that point in time decided that broadband was not a priority. So we'll talk more about sort of, engaging your local leaders, engaging folks who might already be working on this in your communities or in communities that you want to help advocate for. But that's one of the key reasons why we want this, and this has to be a grassroots effort. This would never work if Sam and Clara and I were running around from town to town to try to confirm that everyone's using this money for broadband, right? That would be completely inefficient and probably a disaster. So it's better that we get folks like you recruiting from all across the state of Maine to make sure this happens. And I will say, I'm really excited to say that we've gotten close to 50, I would quote, close to 30 different people who have already signed up just in the first ask. So there's some obvious momentum and energy around this. And I'm excited that all of you turned out this morning.
Yeah, it's beautifully said, Japhet. It really does come down to a community-wide effort to make sure that this money is spent efficiently and effectively to solve the problems that really do exist in Maine. And your guys' presence is a testament to the fact that there are problems that need solving, and keeping that message on the agenda of the people in charge of the money is going to be our critical goal. And just to summarize a couple of things Japhet said in there quickly, because he mentioned a lot, but so some of the ways that you might break down that problem are, collecting correct information, making sure that people that have questions have the information that they need, and that we're providing them with the right information. And another thing might be maintaining the energy of the program, right? Making sure that we're telling the story and making sure that we're communicating the impact of broadband on people's lives. And a final thing is organizing, region-wide projects. And that really comes down to making sure that multiple towns are invested in these projects and able to contribute and collaborate effectively. So those are three things, that as a county connector, you can sort of hold near to your heart as the core of our mission, right? It's information, it's energy, and it's organization. And we'll dive into a lot more of that, later this week at the training on Thursday. But I won't drag on too long with sort of an introduction to what county connectors are. As Japhet said, you guys are the momentum behind using this new money effectively to bring broadband to homes across Maine. And I think Japhet said a lot of that excellently. Quickly about myself, I'm Sam. I've been brought onto this project recently to help sort of get it off the ground and launch it. I work in research and advocacy mobilization for important social issues around the country and the state of Maine. So that's sort of why I'm here today. I'm here to help you guys come together and really make an impact and a difference. And I couldn't be excited. You guys are just, everyone I've talked to so far from Maine seems dedicated to not just themselves and making a difference, but also their entire communities. And so it's fantastic to see. That covers a bit of the basics. Some things we're going to be looking out towards the future on are, collecting those local stories, like we said, getting towns to sign on to some guiding values. That's really an invitation to get towns, excited about making broadband happen equitably and effectively, right? It can't just be providing it to the mainline streets and the highest rent homes. It has to be providing broadband to everyone. And so, getting them to sign on to those guiding values will be something that's coming down the line. Assisting local leaders with their events, dialogues, and projects is going to be a way that county connectors can contribute. Running speed tests, right? This gets back to the information question we were talking about. Do we have accurate information about what service Mainers have? Basically, the answer is no. And so we are hoping to change that and help make a difference in that front. And finally, distributing that information once we have it, and just making sure we're helping people answer questions, and being there as a support resource. So you don't have to think about all that right now. Certainly not, as a county connector, you don't need to feel like all of these issues rest on your shoulders. You have an amazing support network around you of other team members. You have the MBC, the Maine Broadband Coalition, standing behind you with their, network of resources and experts. And you have our private partners who we work with, people like GWI, who are really changing the game of what private service can mean, private internet service. And they are providing, they're coming at this as as a company that wants to make a positive difference in Maine and not just, turn a profit. So you've got a whole network. You're not in this alone, and you don't have to take on all the challenges by yourself. But if you can even tackle one of these issues or start making a difference on them, you will have a huge impact on your community. So we're really excited, and some specific things that you can do just in this week are coming to Thursday's training, where Clara will give her incredible breakdown of Broadband 101. I know some people have already had that training here, and they can attest that she is just as clear as it comes when it comes to learning about broadband. So come to Thursday's training, get there if you can. And then you can open a dialogue with anyone in your town that's interested or related to broadband. It might be just sending an email to a friend on the select board saying, we're interested in finding out more about broadband, asking some initial questions. Where are we at as a town? How can we do better? And what do we need to do moving forward? It might be talking to a local librarian or a school board member. These are places that need good internet. So just an opening conversation with someone like that, an initial email is a great first step. And then also just think about any friends who you think might make good county connectors or who are impacted by broadband or lack thereof. So those are some really quick steps. Just once again, I'm going to reiterate them. Come to Thursday's training, open a small dialogue, and think about some other, potential county connectors. And you can do those over the next week or two. And we'd love to, see you all on Thursday. Japhet and Clara, are there any other final thoughts you guys want to add before we open it up to questions?
Just to answer Pam Partridge's question, yes, we are going to record these. We'll record Thursdays as well and try to make those available to you immediately after. I hope that is not an excuse not to join us. We don't want this to be just Sam, myself, and Clara speaking to an empty room that is watched at a later date. Many of these things will revolve around your own feedback. And so we want to hear some of the stories. We want to hear, what did that select board member say when you asked about broadband and whether there's going to be funding and how it's going to be spent? Have you talked to your town manager? Have you talked to your county commissioner? What are some of the areas around you that are the dark spots for coverage? These are things that we want to share in these little meetings. And if you can't get to the meeting, we understand. Emails and correspondence that way are fine. So feel free to reach out to Sam, myself, or Clara if you've got questions or just want to give a quick report back on what you're hearing. But we really want these meetings to be a sounding board. So I'm going to drop a quick link in the chat just in case folks have not seen it yet. But this is for our Thursday 101, where we'll go over some more stuff and Sam can talk about that and highlight that. But also just want to get to questions. Clara, is there anything that we're missing out on here? And I'm not sure if you wanted just to talk briefly about sort of the Maine Broadband Coalition's perspective on where this is all headed.
Yeah, I think you guys have really covered most of it. So I think, yeah, from my perspective, I've just basically seen over the past year just the need for added capacity for a lot of towns and counties when it comes to broadband. That's not something that exists already. So that's something that this program is definitely part of with MBC. Something that we're sort of trying to be better about is expanding regional capacity in general. So that includes this program, the County Connectors, but that also includes another program that we're working towards, and it's called the Community of Practice and Connectivity Boosters. And you don't have to know all about this right now, but just for some context, those will also be other individuals that'll be working across counties working with regional broadband initiatives. And so those will be more people for you guys to connect with eventually once that program rolls out, which should be early next year. So just in the context of things, this is sort of what you guys are doing is so important and so needed across the state. And from working with towns individually the past year, I've seen how great a need there is for dedicated capacity to helping move these projects forward, especially because a lot of the towns, the committees are volunteers and there's just not enough, doesn't seem to be enough time. So what you guys are doing is really important. And I really appreciate you guys all stepping up and being a part of this program. And I look forward to working with you more. And I'm also gonna put my email in the chat if anyone ever wants to reach out and ask any questions or meet and just talk about broadband. So I'm gonna send that in the chat right now.
Amazing. And if at any time you have any additional questions for me too, feel free to reach out. But I'd love to give us a little time here, before we wrap things up. I know we've already held you a little bit long, so if you got to go, no worries. And as we said, this will be recorded, but we'd love to hear any questions that you guys have. If there's any thoughts or curiosities, where is this going? How can I help? Just anything in that vein, feel free to fire away. We are here and all ears.
You can't copy stuff in the chat.
You can't copy stuff in the chat?
No.
So what, like links, is that what you're looking for?
I was going to copy Claire's email address.
Okay. Here, maybe if we put it as a separate, I'm having a problem where if I select it. Well, in any case, I will send out an email after this and make sure you have all the contact information that you need and all the documents that you need, and links and things like that. Absolutely. I know sometimes Zoom can be a little funky, so no worries at all.
Thanks, Sam.
Any other questions or thoughts? Oh, Clara, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I just said thank you for making sure that, I just want to make sure everyone has my email if they want to reach out. So thank you for sending that out after this.
No worries. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
I'll just add in, just so in case folks are sort of wondering what's next. So as Sam said, the Thursday 101 will be a little bit more of a deeper dive into the specific asks and actions that we're going to be asking many of you to take. And just so you're also aware, there's another 15 or 20 of you that are not on this call that we're going to be sort of herding together as best we can. But I will say that it's important that, I think for each of you to begin getting a sense, not just of your own community in your own backyard, about where they are with the broadband funding, and are they planning to use any of it for broadband expansion? Is there already momentum or conversations? Getting a status check of your own communities is really going to be helpful to understand the map, right? So understanding sort of where things are at, because you're jumping into an active space, ideally. Some of you may not. Some of you may come across town managers who have said, no plans. What do you want to talk about? And that's a good place, because now you can begin starting that conversation and being sort of the impetus, starting factor for broadband in your communities. But as Sam said, the getting communities to sign on is a big first step. This is going to be a public display of support, meaning that this town has said, we agree with these values for broadband expansion and for the availability and accessibility of an affordable connection for all residents. It's not a legally binding document, so no town is setting itself up for a lawsuit if they were not to meet some goal. It's just a public display to say, hey, we in Yarmouth or we in North Anson, we believe this is the goal, and this is what we're trying to fight for. And we'll talk more about that specifically, but that's a great way to start the conversation of broadband in your community if you haven't already. But if you're already plugged into this issue, and I'm thinking about Michael on this one, if you've already gotten a sense for sort of the lay of the land, you may be ahead of the game, and you may be able to sort of understand not just your community, but communities around your community and where they are. I think that's an important piece. So we don't want to give you too much of a peek into Thursday, but I just wanted to give you enough to keep you engaged and interested, and to let you know that we do have a plan. It's not just sort of fly by night, but we are building the airplane as we fly it.
Can I just ask, you don't have to answer this today, and if it's way too soon, that's fine. But I've had this big question when people talk about that last mile. It's obvious that the private sector it wasn't profitable for them, so that's why they didn't do it. So to me, that's when I see the role of government stepping in. So I'm really curious, and I know when we talk about government, sometimes we go back to that little town level, but the little town, anecdotally, I hear, oh, we have broadband here. They're not focused on that last mile either. So I really want to know, what is the state going to do? And I think and the affordability question, is there going to be legislation to subsidize or something. So those are my two big areas that I'd really love to kind of know as I delve into this further. And like I said, you don't have to answer it today.
Well, let's take a stab at it because it's a great question. And I'll make sure that Japhet and Clara definitely have their, their time with it. But I think, to answer your question, right, you're absolutely right, is that the towns in a lot of cases can't take on the entire burden on their own, and we wouldn't expect them to. And you're also correct that it hasn't changed, that it's not profitable for ISPs to provide that last mile service, right? Something else needs to fill that void. I think looking at the hundreds of millions of federal dollars that are coming in the forms of grants is going to be a big answer to that question, is going to be a big place we're turning to answer that question. But it's still going to take local investment at some level, likely, right? For showing that a town can put forth a little bit of matching money or can partner with a private organization to put forth some kind of investment shows that they're really committed to making a change, and will increase their likelihood of getting those federal grants dramatically. Okay. And so we're hoping that we can combine those three efforts in order to make these federal grants a reality for these small towns and bring in some of that money that isn't available at the local level. I hope that answers some of your question, but you're absolutely right on a lot of those points. Cindy Lou, I just want to say, I don't know if you're still with us, but you mentioned in the chat that you're so excited, and I just want to say thank you for sharing that energy. It's so important, keeps us rolling. Clara and Japhet, did you have anything to add that I missed to that question?
I think we're good. I think you're speaking to solutions, Jessica, which is a good point to bring back, sort of like what's going to be the solution for any and all communities to keep this thing affordable but also accessible. And the good news is that Clara has been very much engaged with local communities now for the last year, hearing about how some of these communities are tackling the problem. And each community is going about this differently. Sometimes it involves a private-public partnership. Some communities are exploring, fully being the provider themselves. There's a lot of ways to do this. And so that's a very nice way of saying there's a lot of information coming at you guys, because we want you to have all the tools available to inform your community leaders about how best to approach this for wherever you live.
Absolutely. A great question. Claire, I just want to give you one more shot. Anything, no worries if not, okay. All right. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? Please feel free to just jump in or raise your hand, however you feel comfortable. You got it, Lyndall. We're stoked to have you on, and can't wait to see you at, hopefully at Thursday's training. All right, well, there's no other thoughts. I just want to say thank you all so much again, and we're so happy to have you here. It was a fantastic first meeting, and can't wait for Thursday and beyond. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the line.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Japhet. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Carla.